What are we talking about?
We kind of wanted to talk about like how you've been through so much, but you still keep going, and kind of how you're such an inspiration to so many people.
Oh, well, that's nice. Okay.
Okay. I'm sure you hear that a lot.
I've heard it a few times, but it's very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. So is that working?
Yeah, that's on.
Okay.
And you guys are like, so what's this? What program is this for?
We're in the broadcast journalism program.
Okay.
Yeah, because you did the radio one.
I did radio. Yeah.
Did they have a broadcast journalism?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you just thought you wanted to do radio.
I was in radio before I
Radio,
was in TV. Yeah.
Where did you do
work
weather?
before that?
I worked at CFox and I worked at
Okay.
Z95.
That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
That's cool. So that's on, and then we'll do this one as a backup just in case.
Yeah.
You can never trust
No,
technology.
You can't trust them.
So could you maybe describe a little bit your journey from BCIT to here? A little bit?
Sure. I graduated from BCIT in radio in 1991, so long ago. And from there, I had a job before I graduated. About 2 weeks before graduation, I got a job at CFox in the promotions department, and I worked in the promotions department for a couple of years. From CFox, I moved to Z95 and 650 CL, where I was the promotions director. And I did some things on air, but mostly it was in the promotions department at both stations. And then I was fired from Z95. And that's a whole other story. I didn't do anything wrong, but a new boss came in, and it's what happens. They say that if you're in radio, you can be guaranteed you'll be fired at some time, basically. you can be sure of that.
It's not good.
It makes you stronger.
Yeah.
Getting fired, it makes you, they say you haven't had a career unless you've been fired at least 5 times. So there you go. I've been fired a few. So don't feel bad about getting fired ever. And from there, I went and worked for a concert promoter, and I did promotions and marketing and PR for a local concert promoter, and that was an amazing job. And then I heard about a job opening at VTV, so CTV was VTV, and I was hired in the promotions department. We weren't on air yet, and they needed somebody to do a community calendar on air, and they volunteered me. I didn't volunteer myself, and I went on air on September, I think it was 21st, 1997, and from there it just grew, and I've spent the last 18 years here growing and honing my skills.
So what was it like to kind of go from weather to anchoring?
It was challenging and exhilarating and terrifying. Yeah, it was good.
That would be terrifying, I would think. So I guess the other question, or kind of, because you're such a public figure in Vancouver, and a lot of people know who you are because of Instagram, and they follow you on Instagram, and how was it when you were going through some of the struggles, your cancer battle and stuff like that? Was that hard to be in the public eye and people kind of know so much, or did you find a balance?
Well, it's interesting because I had to make a decision when my son was born, and as to how much I was going to share. Because up to that point, it had just been me, and I'm a sharer. I share things, and I have no problem doing that. And then I got married, and then I had a husband to think about, and our wedding was on the cover of a couple of magazines, and it's okay, that's but he's a musician, and he's used to being in the public eye, and so that was all fine. But then we had our son, and our son was diagnosed with Down syndrome when he was 5 days old. And I had to decide, okay, am I going to share all of this? Am I going to share some of it? Am I not going to share any of it? And I felt that by not sharing any of it, it didn't allow me to have control of the story and tell the story that I wanted to tell, and let people know that it's all okay. This is not a bad thing. This is a beautiful thing. And, I didn't want to be the poster child for Down syndrome, but in some ways, we are, and that's okay. Because I think that by sharing Beckett's story and my story and our journey together as a family, I think that I have allowed other people to feel better about their situation and be more open about it. And the one thing that I discovered is that it can be very isolating to feel that you're different. And so whenever I would meet somebody else that had a child with special needs, or especially a child with Down syndrome, it made me feel better, because I felt like, oh, I'm not alone here. You're with me and you're on my side, and if I need your help, you'll get in the boat with me and help me row, and I can, have somebody to bounce ideas off of. So when it came to the whole cancer thing, it was, the decision was kind of already made for me, because I was so open about Beckett and that challenge for us at the beginning. I just thought, okay, well, am I going to not say anything about cancer, or am I just going to tell it like it is? And so I decided to tell it like it was. And really none of that happened on air at CTV. It did all happen through Instagram or Facebook, or not so much Twitter, but really more through Instagram. And Instagram for me has really been just this sort of really fun, creative outlet that has allowed me to really be myself. And I don't put very much work on Instagram at all. It's mostly personal. And I just started doing it for my friends. And I found that by opening up about the cancer, that I met a lot of really great people, and I think I met people that helped me feel like I wasn't alone, and I hope that I made other people feel like they weren't alone. So it's been a really good experience.
Would you say that journey and sharing with people, now that you look back on it, it's something that was very easy for you, or in the moment was it super harder? Or
the hardest part for me was saying the C word. That was because I refused to say that it was cancer, it seemed, for the longest time, because I was like, well, it's not really cancer, it's just this tumor that's not benign or malignant, it's kind of this weird thing, and it's not really cancer. And my oncologist was like, yeah, it is. And I'm like, oh, really, are you sure? Because I don't and I was really confused. Do I have cancer, or did I have cancer? Or because they got the tumor out, but so for me it was more of a struggle as to how do I describe it for me. But eventually I just thought, well, I had cancer, and it is what it is, and I can't change that. I can't rewrite that part of the story. And so moving forward, looking back, I wouldn't change anything. I'm happy I shared what I shared, and I wouldn't change anything. And I think that if more people if more people showed their not so shiny sides, we'd feel a lot better. Like, let's face it, like, a lot of my Instagram is pretty shiny, and and looks like, oh wow, I have lots of white furniture and kids that are always smiling. It's not true all the time, right? Because that's not the way life is. And so I think that by showing some of the cracks and showing some of the messiness of it, it's not a bad thing.
No. So I saw recently, actually, on Instagram, you posted that you were done your cancer treatment and stuff. Was that, when you wrote that, was that something that was, did you feel like, kind of, what did you feel when you put that out there? 'Cause that's...
I felt, I remember I was by myself when I wrote it, and those were my last 2 pills, and I took them, and then I posted that, and I wrote exactly what I was feeling at the moment, and I didn't edit it, I didn't think about it, I put it out there. I'd been thinking about my last 2 pills for a long time. I'd been counting down for weeks. And so it was, it was a huge moment for me, and I wanted to document it. And the way I kind of look at Instagram for me is that I always say to people, it's my diary that I don't mind you looking at. That's what it is. And so for me, it's a way for me to document what I'm doing and what's going on with me. And I'm okay with you looking at it. If I wasn't okay with you looking at it, I would make it private, or I wouldn't do it. And so I didn't mind anybody seeing that sort of, I don't know. It felt vulnerable at the time, but that's okay.
Does it feel the same kind of with Beckett as well? And showing?
With Beckett now, I feel, Beckett for me is just now and always he's just super cute. And I love sharing pictures of all my kids. Yeah. But, for Beckett, when, sometimes I have to take 25 pictures to get one of him actually smiling and looking, because now he won't smile for the camera. He's like tired of me taking pictures of him. So, when I get a good one, I'm like, oh, this is so cute. And I put it up because it's my diary. And I love looking, like scrolling through all my pictures and going, oh yeah, right, that was on that day and that was on, I don't know. That's what I like about it.
Over the last few years, would you kind of say like you've grown? Do you think, in your opinion, you've grown like tremendously, or do you not?
In the past how many years?
A few years maybe.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. Yeah. My life has changed more in the last, I have changed more in the last, I'd say 3 years than I've changed in my entire life, for sure. They've been 3 huge years for me. Major growth.
And do you feel like, being in a part, like being the anchor of such a big station at 6, did you find that it's hard to balance it sometimes? Like, or do you find that it's very, like everything, like, home and your kids and your work, and is that hard?
It's super hard. Yeah, of course. I think it's hard for everybody. Anybody who says that it's easy to balance is not telling the truth, because it's not easy to balance. It's incredibly difficult. And something always falls through the cracks, for sure it does. I forget stuff all the time. And so I find that I just have to write everything down now, because I'll forget that somebody has a swimming lesson or a doctor's appointment, or I can even write it down, and then I get a phone call and it's like, hey, did you remember? It's like, oh yeah, right. So it's, I am late for everything except for the 6 o'clock news. I figure I only have to be on time for one thing, and that's at 6 p.m. So I am sitting at that desk at 5 to 6 every single day, because I am late for everything now. I used to be early for everything, and then the more children I had, the later I got for everything. And so now, I'm lucky if I get to school drop-off on time. I'm usually one of the last parents in the door. And I'm always kind of running around and just trying to, juggle all the balls. And balls are dropping all the time, but that's okay. I just pick them up and keep on going.
So what if you had to kind of, give it, not advice or kind of, well, maybe advice, but if you had to say to someone who's going through a hard time or something that you went through, what would you kind of tell them?
Well, I guess it depends on what the situation is, I've met so many people that are going through way more difficult things than I went through. I guess my advice would be to, just know, and it's not even advice, because you will know what's important, right? It's like things become crystal clear when the when the going gets tough, like everything becomes, your clarity it's unbelievable. Things really come into clear focus about what's important and what's not important. And I think that's been the biggest gift to me is that clarity. But my advice would be to just, really focus in on what's important and talk. I talked a lot. And just concentrate on getting better or getting through it or just getting to the other side, because eventually you can with most things, not all things, because some things don't always end great, but you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and just trying to get to the end of this challenge, whatever it might be.
Anything you want to add?
Could you touch briefly on the charity work that you've done?
Oh yeah, I think it's really important for me, one of my priorities is to give back as much as I can, and to help in any way that I can, and the easiest way for me to help is to give a voice to a lot of things, and so I'm happy. Right now I'm helping to raise $17 million for Women's Hospital, and we have $5 million more. Do you have $5 million?
No.
Because I need $5 million. And it's for equipment for the new NICU at Women's Hospital, and it's been a wonderful experience to raise that money and to get to know everybody involved, and it fills it feeds my soul is what it does. And same with the BC Cancer Foundation. They helped me so much, and they helped so many people, and I just feel so fortunate for their care, that it was important to me to give back in any way that I can. And I can't write a check for $1 million, but I can help raise money and use my voice for good. And so that's another charity that I help with. And the Down Syndrome Research Foundation and the Center for Ability, obviously organizations that have touched our family with our son, and I mean, just about anything that comes along I can't help but I think that to be in a position where you have the opportunity to share information, that I don't know, I feel it's my responsibility to give back and to help where I can. I think it would be pretty selfish not to.
Yeah, that was all I had to add.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Is that it?
Is there anything you wanted to add?
I don't know. I don't know what your project's about.
It's just a feature, like you, I guess, but
Okay.
and what you've been through and how you keep going.
Do you need to know anything else about me?
I think we covered everything.
I think we covered everything.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't
Sure.
wanna- You have news headlines to read, so we don't.